There is no one else like you. Love is the reason for everything you do. Your kingdom's high, but it's not far. We'll live our lives to tell the world how great you are. God, reign. We sing your praises and we shout your name. God, reign. Through this and every age, your love remains the same. You reign. Who could we ever compare to you? Kings and queens bow down in awe of what you do. The nations of the earth, they rise and fall, but your throne is seated high above them all. God, reign. We sing your praises and we shout your name. Hey, our God, reign. Through this and every age, your love remains the same. You reign. You are greater than we'll ever know. Still you're closer than a friend. We have seen, so let the record show that your goodness has no borders, that your kindness knows no end. God, reign. We sing your praises and we shout your name. That's what your mercy is for. Nothing but kindness is all that you've shown. I call you Father, you call me your own. When I have wandered, you've welcomed me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. Oh, your love is quick to forgive, believes I can be so much more. Oh, when my past behind me at last, that's what forgiveness is for. Nothing but kindness is all that you've shown. I call you Father, you call me your own. When I have wandered, you've welcomed me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. There is no mistake I could ever make that could separate your love from me. And every step I take, chains begin to break. Come on, celebrate. Now I am free. Kindness is all that you've shown. I call you Father, oh, and you call me your own. When I have wandered, you've welcomed me home. Oh, with nothing but kindness. Oh, nothing but kindness. Nothing but kindness. And I call you Father. When you call me your own. I call you Father, and you call me your own. Yeah, we're so just in awe of your goodness to us, God. We have, maybe just speaking for myself, done things and said things and thought things and doubted things, God, that we were pretty sure should have somehow inspired your anger or your frustration, at least, with us, God. And we thank you that all you ever show us is your kindness, your goodness and your mercy, God. And through all of the things that we've walked through, somehow you always know exactly when to show up and to make yourself known to us, God. And some of us maybe are in that place right now, God, where we're just desperate for you to show up, to make yourself known. If we just knew, God, that you were there. And so my prayer tonight, God, is that would you just do that? Would you do it for those of us who maybe believe that you're there, but maybe just need to really sense it, maybe just need to really feel it. that what we're walking through right now, God, that you're walking through it with us. And you're displaying kindness to us, God, when we need it so much. I walked through the night and I've seen better days, but you've always been the same. And I've been tried by fire, healed by your rain, and in every season, God, you are the same. And this is where the glory is. You're the one I'm walking with. And this is where the glory is. I'm never alone. And this is where the glory is. Here and now until the end. And this is where the glory is. Forever and ever. Amen. There's not a moment, there's not a place that your presence won't invade. So I will survive, walking by faith. The God I love has always been the same. Yes, the God I love will always be the same. This is where the glory is. You're the one I'm walking with. And this is where the glory is. I'm never alone. This is where the glory is. Here and now until the end. This is where the glory is. Forever and ever. Amen. So I'm singing a new song, but the story's the same. I'm singing a new song, 'cause you haven't changed. I'm singing a new song about a love that remains. I'm singing a new song for all of my days. I'm singing a new song, but the story's the same. I'm singing a new song, 'cause you haven't changed. I'm singing a new song about a love that remains. I'm singing a new song for all of my days. This is where glory is. You're the one I'm walking with. This is where glory is. I'm never alone. Oh, this is where glory is. Here and now until the end. This is where glory is. Forever and ever. Amen. Hey, God, we thank you that you show up whenever we need you, God, whenever we need you most. You're right there walking through whatever we're walking through with us, God, and we thank you for that. Amen. Well, again, want to just say thanks for being here. As it's been a great night, right? It just sounded like I was saying that. Hey, thanks for being here. This is a great opportunity to say hi to somebody. You know, today is the first day of autumn. I don't know if you know that. And for some people, not me, for some people, autumn means one thing: pumpkin stuff. I don't know why. So find somebody, introduce yourself, tell them hi, you're glad they're here, happy autumn, and do you like pumpkin stuff? Just ask them that, and they'll have a quick answer for you, I'm sure. Again, thank you so much for being here this weekend. We've got a lot of great stuff still in store. We're wrapping up this series that we've been in called EQ. So glad you're here. When you came in, you should have gotten, if not, it's not too late to get one of these. It's our weekly program, and it's just filled with stuff that's happening in the life of Terra Nova. Not really anything pumpkin-y, but just lots of great stuff coming out. We got a dessert night tomorrow night. We've got a Women's Craft Day coming up. International Coffee Weekend. They got me with that one because I do love coffee. That's happening all next weekend, both stuff we're doing in the community and stuff that's happening here at the Hub. So just check that out. Go through that. Also, I want to draw your attention to this little card here. It's a perforated card. Fill that out sometime during our time together. This is a way that we can connect with each other, and you can write down a prayer request, something's going on in your life. If you've got updated like contact info, like, hey, I moved last month, you can put your new address there. If you've got a new phone number, etc. I would encourage you to fill that out sometime during our gathering. You can drop it in the baskets on the way out, and just let us know what is going on in your life, because we actually do read these. We actually do pray over these, and so I want to encourage you to fill that out sometime during the gathering. And again, thanks for being here. We're going to dive into part 3 of our series, EQ.
Dear, we write this letter for which you have been accepted to the... Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Danielle, you gotta see this. Look at this.
Come here, come here, come here.
Okay. How have you not seen that yet?
Congratulations. Thank you.
Start from beginning. Tell us everything.
Okay, so
I can't believe it.
What is it?
You gotta be kidding me. That's great. Hey, come here, you gotta listen to the story.
I have something to show you.
Oh my goodness.
That is great.
We're getting this tonight.
What are we gonna tell first?
We gotta tell our moms something. Your mom and my mom.
Oh man, that is so good. I love that. And it's so true, right? That when you got something that's really good news, you just have to share it. You want other people to hear about it. You want other people to experience it for themselves. And that actually is exactly how the Jesus movement began. And that's what our next series is about, kicking off next week. This series that's deep diving into some ancient accounts of the early Jesus movement found in a document that's in the New Testament known as the Acts of the Apostles, or more commonly as the Book of Acts. The series title is Good News is for Sharing. Kicking that off next week. Really excited. Some of the stories that we'll talk about might be somewhat familiar. If you've heard many stories from scriptures, maybe you've heard some of those, but others that we'll talk about might be brand new. You may have never really heard them before or never thought much about them. And so it'll be a great series. I think you'll get a lot out of it. But check this out. Our life groups which are kicking off in October. We've been signing up all month long. Our life groups are actually almost all of them are going to be tracking with this series through the stories of the book of Acts. And the life groups will be taking content from the weekend, taking it deeper, unpacking it, kind of working through it a little bit more. And a lot of you have already signed up. So many people have already signed up for life groups, but maybe you haven't. And I just want to say, this is the time to jump in because September is life group sign up month, and September, as you may have noticed, is almost over. So you can sign up with this brochure tonight. You can find the group, check it, throw the whole brochure. Well, you might want to put your name on it. Throw the whole brochure in the offering basket on the way out. You can scan the QR code. You can sign up for a group right now. And what's really great is that for most of our groups, the only homework for the group is just coming here, being a part of this, working through the content here in this community, and then taking it deeper in a smaller community. So I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll jump in, not just for the series, but into a life group as well. They're all kicking off really soon. Some of them are actually beginning this week. So that's what's coming up. But today, as Christian mentioned, is actually part 3, the series finale of EQ, Emotionally Intelligent Relationships. And it's the series that's been all about something that's really core to our lives, and especially core to what it means to be a follower of Jesus, loving people really well and loving them smartly and intelligently, being really smart and intelligent about the way we love and the way we love well. In fact, there's a prayer that I've been praying during this series. It's actually found in a letter written by a man named Paul, or the Apostle Paul, St. Paul, that captures this idea so well for us. And the prayer goes like this. The letter is a letter to some of his friends in the Greek city of Philippi. And he says this in the letter, this prayer for them. He says, "This is my prayer, that your love would abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight." That your love would abound more and more in knowledge and in depth of insight, intelligence, that you would be smart about it, that you would grow deeper in it, so that, check this out, so that you may be able to discern what's best. Like you will have increased discernment. I don't know what to do in this relationship. I don't know how to respond to this. You would have increased discernment because you're smarter and smarter about the way you love, and you may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, discernment and character. So there's a lot hanging on this, right? There's a lot riding on our ability to love well and love smart, that you may be able to discern what is best and be pure and blameless until the day of Christ. I love this line, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. And that was Paul's prayer for his friends. And it's been my prayer for myself and my prayer for us during this series. Now, this idea of emotional intelligence, of EQ, we've had this working definition that goes like this, that emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your own emotions, kind of know what's going on in you, and regulate them, which is not so easy to do, right? And then at the same time, to understand and positively influence the emotions of other people as well. And in that definition are what we've been calling the 4 skills of emotional intelligence, beginning with self-awareness and self-regulation. And that's really where we began in week 1 of our series, some very specific and practical things that we can do to increase our emotional awareness and our emotional regulation, which are really ways of learning how to love people better and more smartly, right? And then last week, we turned that outwards as the definition itself does, the second half of that definition, that part of loving people well is being able to understand where they're coming from and positively influence them. That part of loving well, we said last week, is actually following God's own model of relationship, this incredibly humbling, this incredibly vulnerable idea of stepping out of our own worlds and into the other person's, what's commonly referred to as empathy, stepping out of ourselves, stepping out of our head, our story, step out of yourself, which is always an act of incredible self-sacrifice to enter their world and to see it from their experience. Now, to make that a bit more concrete last week, we gave some practical steps. And you might have remembered this throughout this week because we gave this mantra that a lot of us learned in childhood to protect us from running into dangerous intersections and out into the street. Stop, look, and listen, right? And so here's what we said last week. Here's how we apply this. Okay, there's that. Okay, then the next one is, there we go. Stop, which is focus your full attention. Look, notice that all those start noticing people and how they're feeling. And then listen behind what the look or the words are to to discover their meaning, be curious. And then finally we said bonus round is to reflect back your interest and understanding. But then we ended by saying there's a reason why this won't work. There's a reason why. I mean, you could try it and it's just failing. It's epic. It's terrible. In fact, there's a reason why you may not even try this. Like you'll go, I don't even need to do that right now. And the reason is the story I'm telling myself. The story I'm telling myself. That all day long, I've got this running narrative just streaming through my head, and you do as well, about everybody and everything, especially when anything's just been disruptive or upsetting or disappointing or discouraging. Someone hurts me, snubs me, steps on my toes, offends me, lets me down, and I begin telling myself a story. And what's interesting is, instead of establishing the facts and trying to clarify exactly what you meant or asking clarifying questions or seeking to really understand how it went down and where you're coming from, to be a person of understanding, we talked about that last week. Instead of that, we tell ourselves a story about exactly what they did and why they did it and what they meant and how wrong they are and how right we are. And it's a story that keeps us from being able to, or frankly, even wanting to stop, look, and listen and try to read them and understand them better. I mean, why would I? I already know what's going on. I already know where you're coming from. Why would I stop, look, and listen? Now, to get at this today, I want to take a look at something that's just so powerful and maybe so familiar to many of us, if not all of us. This idea is found in a passage that's just straight up famous. Like if you've never heard anything about the Bible, never read the Bible, not familiar with anything, you may have actually heard this before, because it is one of the most popular things that are found in the documents known as the Bible. You've probably heard it at a wedding. And it's these lines out of a letter called 1 Corinthians. And these lines are often read in a wedding, but you need to know these lines weren't actually written for weddings. It wasn't written for a wedding. It wasn't even written for marriages, though it is great for that. It was written by this man named Paul, or the Apostle Paul, St. Paul, and it was written for life. It was just written for everyday life, and it was written particularly for a group of people who were in conflict with each other, who were having conflict and tension. There's a lot of stress. There are a lot of upset people, and it's really all about emotional intelligence, relating well, loving well, even when there's tension, especially when there's tension and disagreement. In fact, as we read these words today, like you could substitute EQ for love, like you could substitute emotional intelligence for love, and everything in this statement would be true, because it's describing the character and the thinking that results in working well with people and relating well and loving well with imperfect, very different people. Now, what's interesting is as you read this list, or as you hear it being read, for most of the list, as he's describing what love or emotional intelligence is, it'll be like, yep, that's right. Yep, I agree. Yep, that's true. Oh, I need to work on that, but it is true. Like, I get you. You're right. But then, at the end, he says 4 things in rapid succession that if you're paying attention, you might think, well, I don't know about that. I'm sorry, I don't even know if that doesn't even sound healthy. That actually sounds like bad advice. That sounds like maybe codependent or foolish or enabling. Like, I don't know, Paul, I think I might disagree. But buried in those 4 thoughts is an insight that I think has the power to change every relationship in your life. And here are these lines that you may be so familiar with. He starts like this: love is patient, and love is kind. Love is patient. It's the old school word was long suffering. I kind of like that word, long suffering, like long fuse. It just goes through a lot and it just keeps going. It gives people just a wide bandwidth and so forth. It is patient and it is kind, meaning it is actively good. It is actively generous and thoughtful. It is gentle in its approach, even to conflict, even when there's tension, because that's who he's writing this to. And you go, well, is that true? Is that true about love? Like, yep, I kind of agree with that. And then he says, love does not envy. Love does not envy. And boy, social media has really turned up the heat on this in the last decade or so, right? Because you're scrolling through and it's like, Oh, they're out to dinner. Oh, they're at a concert. Oh, look at them with all their friends. Hey, they're with my friends. Like, oh, good, she lost another 10 pounds. I hate her even more. It's like we're reading, we're scrolling through and there's just envy and envy. But when something good happens to somebody else that isn't happening to me, love, or you might say emotional intelligence, says, I can feel joy for that person. I can feel joy for that person without the bitter aftertaste of why them and why not me. Love does not envy. It's able to celebrate someone else's good fortune or blessings without feeling like it had to be mine as well. And love does not boast, and it is not proud. In other words, literally it's not puffed up. It doesn't inflate itself. It's not pounding its chest. Love doesn't push itself forward. Love doesn't tell its story over the top of everyone else and one up everybody. Love doesn't have to make itself the center of attention or make things all about me. And again, we would read that and we go, yep, I agree. Yep, that's true about love. Then he adds this. He says, love does not dishonor other people. That's pretty huge. Doesn't behave shamefully and doesn't behave in a way that embarrasses the other person. By the way, this includes parents embarrassing their children. You ever see that? Like parents are oversharing about their child who's sitting right there and you see them cringing, just wanting to crawl under the chair. Love doesn't do that. This includes spouses unwrapping the weaknesses and flaws of their spouse in public, throwing them under the bus. Love doesn't do that. And emotional intelligence doesn't do that either. It doesn't dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, my turn, my stuff, my rights, my way, what about me? And again, we'd read that and go, yep, I agree. That's true about love. Love, here's one, is not easily angered. In other words, it's not irritable. It's not grumpy. It's not easily annoyed. Here's a way to put it. Love gives other people a wide margin of error. I love that. A wide margin of error. Have you ever known someone who just had a narrow margin of error? There was a very slim lane in which you could like cruise without like starting to trigger something. It feels like you're walking on eggshells, like anything might accidentally set somebody off. Have you ever been? Hello, a person with a narrow margin of error, right? Like you left a cup on the counter after cleaning the kitchen. Why are you even cleaning the kitchen? If you're gonna leave a cup on the counter after cleaning the kitchen, it's sitting right there. Okay, I just won't clean the kitchen, I guess. I mean, you ever known that person? You ever been that person? Authentic love, emotional intelligence gives people a wide margin of error. Just like benefit of the doubt and hey, it's okay. Empathetic for human fallenness, empathetic for weakness because it's long suffering, even when that person's weakness is affecting me. And maybe because it's patient and long suffering, it's not easily angered. Or maybe because love keeps no records of wrongs. Maybe because love doesn't record and maintain the record of the wrongs. Now, some of you grew up in a home where one or both of your parents kept the record of the wrong thing and could recite it, like ad-lib it, just go. And some of us are in relationships right now where one or maybe both parties are just record keeping at the moment. And we take that record and here's what happens. We create a filter. We create a filter with that record of wrongs and then we interpret everything else that's happening in the relationship through that filter and we go, see, that's how you are. So that's how you are. That's what you do. You are always, always, always so that way. And as is the case with every filter we ever create in our lives, every set of expectations we put on others, it creates what's called a confirmation bias. And the confirmation bias causes us to ignore evidence to the contrary. In fact, research shows that when somebody has a filter or an expectation of what they know they're going to see, they don't actually even see the evidence to the contrary. It's not like they saw it and ruled it out. They don't actually see the thing they didn't expect to see. They only see what they expected to see. And then everything else starts to look like that too. Even if this wasn't exactly that, it's that now. And it all just adds up and the record keeps building. And then we do this crazy thing, which is actually kind of hard to admit. We delight in it. Just a little bit. That there's actually something inside of us that delights in the wrong. that delights in the evil because we get to be right. There's that little thing inside of us that goes, see, I told you she was crazy. She's crazy, I'm sane. See, there she goes again. I told you I was right. I told you he was disrespectful. He's always disrespectful. There he goes again. I knew you wouldn't be on time. I knew he wouldn't be on time. He's never on time because he doesn't care. There's something in us that just goes, oh yeah, that's it. I'm right. And boy, that's dark, right? That's dark, that's dysfunctional, and it is emotionally dumb. That one part of me is saying how much I want that person to change, and there's another part of me that's somehow happy that they didn't, and they don't, and love doesn't do that. Emotional intelligence, love does not high-five itself over the flaws and the mistakes of the people that are loved. Instead, Paul says, it rejoices with the truth. It rejoices with what's good and true and noble and beautiful. It actually looks for that and sees it and calls it out when it's there. And up to this point in his description, we would probably all agree, at least in theory. Like in theory, I agree with his list. Like that's a good list. That's a good description. I may not be very good at some of it. There might be some like ouch factors in like, I don't do that well, but you're right, Paul. That is what love is. And Paul is building himself up to this final phrase. He's reaching this crescendo. And he takes the Greek word panta, because he's writing this in ancient Greek, and we translate it into English. And the ancient Greek word panta is the word for everything. In fact, it's where we get our prefix pan, like pandemic or Pan-American, comes from the Greek word panta, which is all or everything. And he takes panta, and he repeats it 4 times, and then he attaches it each time, pairs that up with a verb of overlapping meaning that comes together to make one overarching final point. And this is how he ends it. He says, love always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. And there's another translation that takes this and words it a little bit different way. I like this. It says, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And I think it's this at this point in his description of love, if we're really paying attention, this I think is where we might want to raise our hand and just go, okay, wait a minute. Like, that doesn't actually even sound healthy, Paul. Like, what if there's evidence to the contrary? I'm supposed to believe and believing, trusting, hoping, always enduring and persevering. Like, what if my trust is broken? What if they do continue to do the same thing? I'm not just keeping a record of the wrong. They keep doing it, right? I'm supposed to like protecting and believing and trusting and hoping and enduring. Isn't that what codependent people do? I mean, isn't that what enabling people do? And this is where I want to deep dive into a really big idea, and then I want to come back and look at those words again. In every relationship, and really in every context in our lives, there is a gap between expectation and reality. There always is. There's a gap between what I thought would be or what I kind of think should be and what ends up actually being like the way it is. And sometimes those expectations are voiced, or at least they're out in the open. We said 4 o'clock, it's 4:15, you're not here. Again. You said you would pay that bill. Oh, look, I just got this in the mail. It seems to indicate the bill wasn't paid. We talked about this. Hey, we talked about this. This is what needed to happen. It would not seem to appear that that is actually what happened. And there is a gap between expectation and reality, or maybe oftentimes what would be and what should be is just assumed. I mean, we don't even need to, everybody knows, or I just think like that's the way it should be, right? We're going on vacation. There's a certain way things should happen on vacation. We just got some really bad news. I am very upset. You should be as upset as me. Because I'm upset, you should share that emotion. How are you not upset as well? I'm going through something really difficult in my life. You should be reaching out to me. If you cared, you should be reaching out to me more than you actually are. And in every relationship, including this relationship, in every context, friends, family, work, romantic relationships, there are always, always, always gaps. And whenever there is a gap, we fill it. We never say, that's weird. Moving on. We never do that. We fill the gap, and we fill the gap by telling ourselves a story. We tell ourselves a story to fill in the unknown. Brene Brown, many of you have heard of her, famous author, famous for her viral TED Talks and her research on vulnerability and shame and empathy. In one of her more recent books, Rising Strong, she talks about, she compiles all this research about how our brains are storytelling machines. Like whenever something happens that's in any way disruptive or chaotic, that troubles us, that stresses us out, that hurts us or causes us pain, we get confused because our brain lacks data about what's really going on, what actually really happened. And so the brain, and particularly the part of your brain, the left brain, the part that's sometimes called the verbal logical explainer, it's the part of your brain that always explains, always is storytelling. That part of your brain immediately just goes into storytelling mode, trying to fill in the blanks, trying to make sense of what's happening, usually in a way that assigns blame to the other person or to the circumstances as a way of protecting yourself and defending yourself. Your brain tells yourself what she calls a one-sided, worst-case scenario first draft. A one-sided worst-case scenario first draft starts to scroll through my mind. She calls it the stormy first draft, the SFD. It's this one-sided worst-case scenario first draft, and it assigns blame to the other person. It's, again, worst-case scenario. Here's what she writes. She writes, when the brain senses danger or stress, it craves a story. It craves a story that will help it make sense of the situation. Who's against me? Who's on my side? Who's dangerous? Who might hurt me? Most of us make up stories that exaggerate our fears and anxieties. Our brains love those stories. Our brains love them, and they chemically reward us. There's like a dopamine hit. They chemically reward us with a sense of calm for having a complete story, even when the story isn't accurate. There's like a dopamine hit that comes to our brains as we start putting the dots together. Now we're making the story up, but it's like, that's it. I know. So you walk past a coworker this coming Monday, a couple days, and you wave. You're like, hi. Like nothing. Don't even acknowledge you. They don't even look at you. And immediately your brain goes into story-making mode. It's like, what happened? Did I do something? Did I say? What's wrong with them? Oh man, he was talking to Brett on Friday, and I know Brett just has it in for me. He's never liked me. He's turned him against me. I know. Or let's say you're a teacher and you send an email home to a parent about a student in your class or child, there's some problems going on, and you expect to reply back, and it doesn't come. And it's been a week, and there's no reply. And worse than that, they seem to be avoiding you before or after school. They're like, they don't see you coming, right? And your brain just goes into story-making mode. It starts telling yourself a story like, do I need a lawyer up here? I mean, have they gone to the principal about me? Like, am I going to be in trouble because I didn't fill out the IEP? Or I'm just trying to help. I was just trying to help their child. And parents are the worst thing about. I don't even know why anybody gets into this vocation in the first place. Or you're texting a friend, And it's been kind of emotional. There's some tension. There's some emotion being shared. And you just replied to something, and then you see those three bubbles come up. And the three bubbles. And the three bubbles. And then they go away. You're waiting. It's been 2 hours. And you start to tell yourself a story. You start to tell yourself a story about what happened on the other end. And Dr. Brown says, what storytelling does is it helps us impose order on the chaos. We talked about the chaos last week, the deep water that's like so mysterious that helps us impose order on the chaos, especially if something's disruptive, especially the messy and emotional chaos, things that are hurtful or angering or upsetting in any way. And almost always, she says, our stories are self-justifying and others vilifying. Self-justifying and others vilifying so I can stay hurt, And I can stay angry and feel perfectly justified in doing it and feel justified when I act poorly in return. And then after we do that, if we were really honest, I kind of delight in it. I kind of delight in the story, the worst case, one-sided scenario that I told myself in my mind. And then there's Paul. There's Paul who tells us something we know is true. Deep down inside, we know is true, that love, authentic, healthy, emotionally intelligent love, it does not do that. It does not do that. It always protects. It always protects. It always safeguards the others, always safeguards their reputation, including in my own head, draws attention away from their flaws, especially in our hearts and in our stories. It always protects and it always trusts. Here's what that means. It always believes the best in the other person. This has happened, but I believe the best in them. It's to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I didn't understand. Maybe there's an explanation. There are things that I don't know, and I'm not going to fill it in with my own story. And it always hopes. It's always leaning in. It's always leaning in, holding out for better for the other person. And because of that, it always perseveres. It hangs tough. It doesn't abandon or shrug or walk away. And so if that's what love does, and I think we would agree that it kind of is, if that's what emotional intelligence does. And if you're a follower of Jesus and love is actually the sine qua non, like the indispensable element of the Jesus movement, how in the world can we start to build that quality right there into our lives and into our relationships and into our stories? So each week, we're ending with what we think is just like a real practical application of knowing. It's like this knowing versus doing thing. Like, I get it, but I don't actually do it. And so we're trying to like bring it in and actually do it. So that our love can actually grow in knowledge and depth of insight, so that we can increase our EQ. And so today, as we wrap up, I want to give you three more practical things to carry into this week. And it begins right here. It begins with challenging your assumptions. Challenging your assumptions. Your brain is filling in gaps with information. It doesn't have it, so it's filling it in with assumptions and conjecture. And I love this word psychologists use, confabulation. That's a fantastic word, confabulation. Let's say it out loud together. 1, 2, 3, confabulation. It's just a fun word to say. It means I'm just making stuff up. I'm making stuff up and I don't know it. I'm lying to myself and I don't know that I'm lying. I'm just telling a story. I'm making stuff up. Begin to challenge. Begin to monitor yourself this week and just catch yourself and just challenge those assumptions. Like, what if that coworker that just walked by you and didn't even acknowledge your existence, what if he was thinking about his wife's birthday that was yesterday and he didn't do anything for her? Ouch. And he can't think about anything else because he is in deep water. Or what if that parent that you emailed is fully aware of the difficulties their child is having because they have them at home and they've been having them their entire lives and they have them in all the other social situations too, and they're ashamed and they're overwhelmed and they're losing heart. They're losing heart. They don't know what to do. It breaks their heart. They don't know how to respond with their child, and they don't know how to respond to you. And maybe just ignoring you and pretending and ignoring your email and trying to ignore you when they see you on campus is just their way of pretending that maybe it isn't so bad. Or what if your friend's phone battery in the middle of that text died? Happens all the time, right? Right in the middle of texting you, and they just haven't been able to get back to you yet. Now, here's the thing. Maybe not for any of these, but here's the point. You don't know. You don't actually know, at least you don't know yet, but if you assume you do, if you assume that you do know and you let that assumption begin to live and take shape in your story and in your heart, you will begin to create filters through which you see future behaviors, what's sometimes just called a reflexive loop. It just repeats, that's self-perpetuating, like and your confirmation bias will look for verification. Like, that is true, and that is what they're doing to your one-sided worst case scenario, and even delight in it while ignoring the truth and ignoring the evidence to the contrary. Now, think about this. Why would our brains delight and a one-sided worst case scenario story about someone we actually love, that we actually care about, or that our lives are a part of. And why would we ever be okay with that? I need to begin to challenge my assumptions. And then number 2, share the story you're telling yourself. Share the story that you're telling yourself. Dr. Brown gives a number of examples in the book. One of her examples goes like this. Her husband came home from work at the end of the day, and it had been a really busy day for them both. For her, she was working 2 jobs at the time, raising their kids. And he walks in the kitchen, opens up the refrigerator, and says, there aren't any groceries. There's not even lunch meat in here. And she shot back to him, hey, I'm doing the best I can. And by the way, you can shop too. And she writes this, inside, I knew exactly what was going on. I knew it. I turned his comment into a story about how I'm a disorganized, unreliable partner and mother, and I apologized. And I started my next sentence with the phrase that's become a lifesaver for my marriage, for my parenting, and my professional life. The story I'm telling myself is that you were blaming me for not having groceries and that I was screwing up. And her husband immediately apologized and clarified. He said, no, actually, I was thinking that I hadn't made it to the grocery store, and I told myself I was going to, I intended to, and now I'm home and I'm hungry and I didn't do it, and I'm kind of kicking myself. But did you catch that phrase? Did you catch that phrase that can unlock the conflict, that can unlock the tension, that can unlock really the truth? 6 words that can transform your relationship, that can transform it can transform how your brain begins to spiral. And those 6 words are, the story I'm telling myself is. The story I'm telling myself is. In fact, I would love us to all say that out loud together. Will you say it with me? 1, 2, 3. The story I'm telling myself is. One more time. The story. So there's a story, right? There's a story, and it's a powerful, powerful tool for reckoning personally with the truth of what's going on inside of me, because I'm immediately acknowledging I'm telling myself a story, I'm kind of making it up, and it's starting to repeat in my head. And so it's like inviting me to consider more deeply what actually is going on inside of me and what I am making up. And it allows me to do this, yet without blaming the other person. Notice that this doesn't involve any defensiveness on my part, and it doesn't invite really any defensiveness on their part. It is incredibly humble and honest and really kind of vulnerable to say, this is what I was actually thinking. This is what is happening in me. And I readily acknowledge it is a story that I'm making up and I'm telling myself. So begin by challenging your assumptions like, hey, you don't know, you're making up a story. That's confabulation. Like you're just telling yourself a story. And then, if you can, if it's appropriate in a relationship, and it's not appropriate in every relationship, but especially with good friends or with family, it might be incredibly important to learn this tool and use it often. At least share the story with yourself. And if at all possible, it's appropriate, that kind of relationship, share with them the story that you're telling themselves, and then invite them to speak into it. Invite them to speak into that story. Invite them to reality check your story. Ask them for clarification. Allow them to help you fill those gaps with better, more accurate information. Can you just help me understand what happened there? Like, where were you coming from? Because here's the story I was telling myself. Is that real, or did I just make that up? Now, here's the thing. It could be that the facts, that the reality, once it gets reality checked, when it comes out, it could be that it isn't great. It isn't great, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about. And that's when that next conversation can get a little bit more real. Can we have a solution-oriented conversation then about that without me importing all of my fears and anxieties into it? And this too is part of emotionally healthy relationships. But let me go back to that question I asked. Why? Think about it. Why would our brains delight in one-sided, worst-case scenario stories about people we love, about people we care about? And why would I ever be okay with that? And why would you ever be okay with that? And I think we'd all say, I don't think I am. I don't think I am okay with that. And Paul would say, that's not love. That's not love. That's not emotionally intelligent love. And he's right. And we all know it. There's a gap. There's always a gap, and we always fill it. We never, ever just go, that's weird. We fill the gap by telling ourselves a story, and sadly, it is so often a story that remembers the wrongs, that delights in evil, that assumes the worst, and ignores the truth. But love, Paul says, love, oh no. Love is patient, long-suffering. It is kind. It does not envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It doesn't dishonor the other person ever. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It has a wide margin of error. It keeps no record of wrongs. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not delight in the evil, but it rejoices in the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. It is one of the most powerful skills of emotional intelligence, and it was written 2,000 years ago. That is what great bosses do. That's what great friends do. It's what great coworkers do. It's what great boyfriends and girlfriends and parents and spouses do. Call it the benefit of the doubt. Call it a wide margin of error. Call it maybe I didn't understand that correctly. Maybe I missed something. There's probably a better explanation. I believe the better part of the better that's in them. He's better than that. She's better than that. This is what I thought I saw, but maybe I got it wrong. So I'm going to believe the best about them until I discover what actually happened when I ask. So this week, let's recognize and reality check our stories by challenging our assumptions, by sharing that story you're telling yourself and asking for some clarification. One final thought. Paul ends this with one last phrase. He says, oh, by the way, that never fails. That never fails. That kind of love does not fail. And for some of us, there's a part of us that says, I don't know, if I do this, I think I might lose. I think I might fail. If I get vulnerable, if I'm trying to be honest, if I put some more trust, if I try to believe the best, like you don't know my story, you don't know what's going on, I've got to protect myself, I've got to defend myself, and I would rather believe the worst about them and go on believing the worst about them than believe the best and hope and put trust in them and be proved wrong again. But let me just say this as we end. If you do the right thing and they do the wrong thing, you do not fail. They do. If you are believing the best in someone and hoping and holding out for the best in someone, and they take advantage of that, you do not fail. They do. If you act nobly in the relationship and they act ignobly, you don't fail. They fail. If you believe the best and they let you down, you don't fail. Love never fails, but more importantly, spread out over the course of a lifetime. A person who lives like this in their relationship, so I will be disappointed, I will be let down, even with my most pure efforts. The person who lives their life loving this way will win. And they're going to win again and again and again. They're going to win in work and business. They're going to win with clients. They're going to win in love. They're going to win in parenting, in marriage, and friendships. Don't let your fear of failing, don't let your fear of being taken advantage of or losing or looking foolish keep you from this essential, emotionally intelligent skill, loving people the way God loves us. Let me close this in prayer. And as we close in prayer, I want to close with a prayer that I started with, written by Paul. Just pray that over us. Heavenly Father, I pray that our love, that our love would abound more and more in knowledge and in depth of insight, so that we may be the kind of people with discernment that will be able to discern what is best, would be pure and blameless until the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, hey, I hope you'll join us back again next weekend as we kick off this brand new series. Good news is for sharing, and it really is. By the way, it's International Coffee Day, October 1st, next Sunday, and we're celebrating it all weekend with a bunch of special coffee. So because good news is for sharing, hey, bring a friend. Like share this, bring somebody in, jump into life groups this fall and take it a little deeper. As you're on your way out, don't forget to throw those connect cards that Christian was telling you about earlier. We'd love to get to know you, love to hear a bit of your story, be praying for you this week. You can throw these life group brochures in there as well, just fully intact. Check the groups you're interested in or fill the form out with the group you're interested in and let us know how to get back to you. And then I finally wanted to say, as we're heading out, there's a dessert night happening at my house tomorrow night. Really excited about it, and you're all invited. Like, pack out my house. There are going to be some fantastic desserts. You can bring a dessert if you want to, or you can just come and enjoy what other people bring. It's between 6 and 8 p.m. It's an open house, so show up anytime. Come and go as you please. Love to have, my wife and I would love to have you drop by our house and love to have an opportunity to get to know you better. That's happening tomorrow night. And then don't forget, next week, we kick off this brand new series, Good News is for Sharing. God bless you guys. Have a fantastic week. May your love abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. We'll see you next weekend.